First contact and patronization. High Coordinator Vrixel of the Collective Assembly stood before the massive observation window of Station Alpha 9, their crystalline form refracting the light of Earth's sun into rainbow patterns across the chamber floor. Below them, the blue-green marble of humanity's homeworld rotated slowly, completely unaware of the debate taking place above its atmosphere. The numbers cannot be correct, Vrixel's resonant voice echoed through the chamber. No sentient species could achieve space flight while evolving in such conditions. Senior Observer Taithka, a being of living plasma contained within an environment suit, floated forward. I assure you, High Coordinator, the data is accurate. These humans not only survived their death world conditions but thrived. They've achieved rudimentary space flight despite gravity nearly twice our standard, atmospheric oxygen levels that would be toxic to most species, and temperature variations that could shatter crystalline life forms. The observation chamber fell silent as the assembled representatives of the Collective Assembly processed this information. Earth had been under observation for nearly a century, but only now, as humans approached true spacefaring capability, had the Assembly deemed it necessary to intervene. Their achievements are concerning, noted Security Director Marinvex, their insectoid mandibles clicking softly. They've progressed from primitive combustion engines to nuclear fission in less than 200 cycles. The rate of advancement is unprecedented for a protected species. Vrixel's crystalline form pulsed with what passed for amusement among their kind. Precisely why we must act now. These humans clearly require our guidance before they harm themselves or others. Look at their planetary defense systems, primitive kinetic weapons, nuclear deterrence, electromagnetic warfare capabilities. They're like children playing with plasma cutters. The assembled representatives murmured in agreement, their various forms shifting in the artificial gravity field. None seemed to notice Security Director Marinvex's mandibles twitching in what might have been concern. I propose, Vrixel continued, that we initiate first contact protocols immediately. We'll present ourselves as benevolent guides, here to shepherd humanity into the galactic community. Our first priority will be implementing the standard protection protocols. The humans may resist, Taithka cautioned, their plasma form flickering. Their entertainment broadcasts show a remarkable preoccupation with independence and resistance to authority. Vrixel's crystalline form chimed softly, their species equivalent of dismissive laughter. Every emerging species resists at first. But once they understand the benefits of our protection, they'll accept their place. The regulatory protocols have never failed. In the following weeks, the Collective Assembly's massive ships descended through Earth's atmosphere in a carefully choreographed display of power and benevolence. Humanity's governments scrambled to respond, but before any meaningful resistance could be organized, the Assembly had already established their presence and begun implementing their protective measures. The first restrictions seemed reasonable enough, limitations on faster-than-light research to prevent accidents, regulations on weapons development for universal safety, oversight of space exploration to protect developing worlds. Each new regulation was presented as a gift, a stepping stone toward joining the galactic community. But Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's newly appointed representative to the Assembly, saw through the facade. During her first address to the Human United Nations, she kept her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest. They're not here to help us, she declared to the assembled leaders. They're here to contain us. Every protection is a chain, every guidance a wall. They call Earth a death world, but I don't think they understand what that means. They don't realize that everything on this planet, every living thing, had to fight to survive. And humanity? We didn't just survive, we conquered our world's challenges. We turned them into opportunities. In the Assembly's observation chamber, Vrixel watched the speech with their secondary sensors, dismissing it as typical primitive defiance. They didn't notice Security Director Marinvex quietly updating their threat assessment protocols, nor did they see the glint in Dr. Chen's eyes as she concluded her speech. They think they're protecting us, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the UN chamber. But they've made a crucial mistake. They've never had to fight for every breath, every step, every advancement like we have. They don't understand that on a death world, you either adapt, or you die. And humanity? We've gotten very, very good at adapting. In the shadows of Earth's nations, wheels were already turning. Plans were being made. And in laboratories and workshops across the planet, humans began doing what they did best, finding ways to overcome the impossible. The assembly had made their first move. But they were about to learn that on a death world, the most dangerous predators weren't always the ones that showed their teeth first. Signs of resistance. 6 months after first contact, the collective assembly's influence had spread through every aspect of human civilization like a gilded cage. Their towering crystalline spires rose from major cities, gleaming monuments to intergalactic cooperation. But beneath the surface, humanity's resistance was taking shape. In an underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez studied the holographic display of an assembly surveillance drone. His team had captured it using technology that, according to their benevolent protectors, humans shouldn't have been able to develop for at least another century. "Look at this," he muttered to Dr. Chen, who had just arrived from another frustrating assembly session. "Their tech isn't as advanced as they want us to believe. They've just had longer to refine it." Sarah Chen ran her fingers through her graying hair, studying the drone's neural interface. "They're so convinced of their superiority that they've stopped innovating. When was the last time they faced a real challenge?" "Never," Marcus replied, his dark eyes reflecting the hologram's blue glow. "That's why they don't understand us. They evolved on worlds that nurtured them. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every step of the way." Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Yuki Tanaka, bursting into the lab with a tablet displaying encrypted data. "You need to see this," she said, her usual calm demeanor shaken. "We've decoded more of their historical database. The assembly, they've done this before." The decoded files revealed a pattern spanning thousands of years. Every time the assembly discovered a species from a high-gravity world, they implemented the same protective measures. Some species were still under guidance centuries later, their development deliberately stunted, their resources quietly exploited. "It's not just protection, it's containment," Sarah realized, her hands clenching into fists. "They're afraid of us. Of what we might become." In orbit above Earth, Security Director Marinvex was reaching similar conclusions. Their latest report to the Assembly Council detailed concerning anomalies, unexplained energy signatures, communication patterns that shouldn't have been possible with restricted technology, and most worryingly, the disappearance of several surveillance drones. "The humans are exceeding projected development parameters," they reported, mandibles clicking anxiously. "Their adaptation rate is unprecedented." High Coordinator Vrixel dismissed the concerns with a crystalline chime. "They're simply more resourceful than expected. Increase restrictions on their technological development. Double the surveillance. They'll accept their place eventually." But humanity had no intention of accepting any place but the one they would forge for themselves. In hidden facilities across the globe, human scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, combining their primitive technology with reverse-engineered assembly systems in ways their supervisors had never imagined possible. In a secret meeting of the Human Resistance Council, military leaders from various nations shared intelligence that would have shocked their assembly observers. Colonel Wei Chen, no relation to Sarah, presented evidence that their protectors had significantly underestimated Earth's martial capabilities. "They think our weapons are primitive because they rely on kinetic energy and chemical propulsion," he explained, gesturing to classified designs. "But they've never experienced warfare the way we have. They don't understand that simplicity can be an advantage." Dr. Rodriguez's team had discovered that the assembly's advanced shields were calibrated for energy weapons and exotic particles, but they had never needed to defend against simple railguns or electromagnetic pulses. The assembly's protection of humanity had made them blind to the very innovations they sought to prevent. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen played her role perfectly, appearing appropriately deferential in assembly meetings while gathering crucial intelligence. She noticed how the other, protected, species representatives watched her with hidden hope in their eyes. Humanity wasn't just fighting for Earth anymore. The turning point came when Dr. Tanaka's team made a breakthrough in quantum communications, developing a method of instant information transfer that the Assembly's monitoring systems couldn't detect. For the first time, humanity could coordinate globally without oversight. "We're ready for the next phase," Sarah announced to the Human Resistance Council. "The Assembly thinks they're dealing with primitive Deathworlders who need protection. It's time to show them exactly what Deathworlders can do when we stop playing nice." In his observation post, Security Director Marinvex reviewed another anomalous energy reading, their instincts screaming that something was wrong. But like the rest of the Assembly, they had never faced a species that had evolved under constant pressure, that viewed obstacles as challenges to overcome rather than barriers to accept. They had never faced humans. As the Assembly's ships patrolled Earth's orbit, maintaining their protective blockade, humanity's trap was almost ready to spring. In labs and bunkers around the world, weapons were being prepared, strategies finalized, and alliances formed with other suppressed species. The Assembly had created the perfect storm. They had given humanity a reason to unite, a common enemy to fight, and most critically, they had underestimated what a species forged in the crucible of a death world could achieve when pushed too far. The storm was coming. And it would shake the galaxy to its foundations. The breaking point. The Assembly's first indication that something was wrong came when 3 of their monitoring stations went dark simultaneously. Not damaged or destroyed, simply dark, as if they had ceased to exist. High Coordinator Vrixel's crystalline form pulsed with agitation as emergency reports flooded in. "Impossible," they chimed, their harmonic voice carrying an edge of disbelief. "The humans don't have the technology to bypass our security systems." Security Director Marinvex's mandibles clicked rapidly as they processed the data. "And yet, Coordinator, the evidence suggests otherwise. We're detecting quantum entanglement signatures that shouldn't exist, energy patterns that defy our understanding of human capabilities." In the United Nations Assembly Hall, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the gathered alien representatives, her posture relaxed despite the gravity of the moment. "Distinguished members of the Collective Assembly," she began, her voice carrying none of the deference they had come to expect, "humanity has prepared a demonstration." On cue, holographic displays throughout the chamber activated, showing real-time footage from across the solar system. Assembly monitoring stations, supposedly hidden by advanced cloaking technology, appeared highlighted against the void of space. One by one, they winked out of existence. "What you're witnessing," Sarah continued, "is the deployment of human quantum displacement technology. Technology you said we wouldn't be capable of developing for centuries. We call it the Ghost Protocol, a fitting name, don't you think?" The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives of various species began talking all at once, their universal translators struggling to keep up. Vrixel's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained fury. "This is a violation of multiple protection protocols," they resonated. "You were not authorized to develop such technology. Stand down immediately, or we will be forced to implement emergency containment procedures." Sarah's smile never wavered. "I'm afraid those won't be effective anymore. You see, while you were busy protecting us, we were learning. Adapting. Your containment fields are based on principles of energy manipulation that we've already surpassed." In orbit, Assembly warships began moving into defensive positions. But as they did, their sensors detected something that should have been impossible: hundreds of small objects, previously invisible to their scans, suddenly appearing around Earth. Dr. Rodriguez's voice came over the general broadcast channel. "We borrowed the concept from something in our history called sea mines. Simple, really. Just small devices waiting to detect specific energy signatures. Like, say, the kind your ships emit when charging weapons. The assembly commanders found themselves in an impossible position. Their ships were surrounded by devices they couldn't scan, couldn't target effectively, and couldn't risk ignoring. Human ingenuity had turned their own technological superiority against them. But this isn't just about Earth, Sarah continued, her voice hardening. We know what you've done to other species. How many civilizations have you protected into stagnation? How many worlds have you stripped of resources while pretending to be benevolent guardians? The chamber's displays shifted, showing evidence compiled over months of covert investigation. Records of resource extraction from protected worlds, deliberate suppression of technological advancement, manipulation of developing species for the Assembly's benefit. We've already shared this information with every species under your protection, Sarah announced. And we've given them something else too, Hope. The knowledge that resistance is possible. That your technological superiority is an illusion maintained by fear and complacency. Security Director Marinvex, watching from their command center, finally understood the full scope of their miscalculation. High Coordinator, they transmitted urgently, we're detecting similar quantum signatures near every protected world in the sector. The humans haven't just developed these technologies, they've shared them. In the assembly chamber, representatives of other protected species began standing up, moving to stand behind Sarah. The balance of power was shifting before their eyes. You called Earth a death world, Sarah declared, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's determination. You meant it as a designation of fear, of limitation. But you never understood what it meant. On a death world, cooperation isn't just beneficial, it's essential for survival. Innovation isn't just desirable, it's necessary for existence. And resistance? Resistance is coded into our very DNA. Outside, the first assembly ship that tried to power up its main weapons discovered exactly how effective human, primitive, technology could be. The quantum mine detonated, not with a destructive explosion, but with a precise pulse that reduced the vessel's advanced systems to their base components. The revolution hadn't just begun. It had already been won. Humanity had stopped playing nice. And the galaxy would never be the same. Uprising and revolution. The next 48 hours reshaped the galaxy's power structure more dramatically than the previous 1,000 years of assembly rule. As news of humanity's successful resistance spread, protected worlds began rising up in coordinated rebellion, using human-provided technology to bypass assembly control systems. In the Centauri sector, the silicon-based lithoids, long dismissed as primitive crystalline entities, used modified versions of human EMP technology to disable assembly mining operations that had been draining their worlds of crucial minerals for centuries. The humans taught us something valuable, their leader transmitted across all frequencies. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Admiral Helena Santos watched from the bridge of the ESS Defiant as the Assembly's supposedly invincible fleet found itself outmaneuvered at every turn. They never imagined we'd think to combine their quantum technology with basic ballistic principles, she remarked to her XO. Sometimes a rock thrown at relativistic speed is more effective than an energy beam. The Assembly's response to the uprising revealed just how deeply humanity had compromised their systems. When they attempted to activate their emergency protocols, they discovered that Dr. Rodriguez's team had already infiltrated their command and control networks using methods so straightforward that their advanced cybersecurity systems had never considered them threats. The beauty of it, Rodriguez explained to the United Council of Rising Species, is that we didn't need to crack their encryption. We just had to understand their assumptions. They were so focused on defending against quantum hacking that they never thought to guard against simple radio frequency manipulation. In the Orion Spur, the aquatic Marians, another protected species, used human-designed submersible drones to reclaim control of their ocean worlds. Their assembly overseers, who had never considered the tactical advantages of three-dimensional underwater warfare, found their superior technology useless against opponents they couldn't effectively track. High Coordinator Vrixel's final transmission to the Assembly Council was cut short as their entire communication network collapsed, compromised by what they would later discover was a modified version of a human computer virus from the 21st century. "You don't understand," Security Director Marinvex tried to warn the Council in their last meeting. "The humans haven't just developed countermeasures to our technology. They've fundamentally changed how other species think about resistance. They've taught them to see limitations as challenges, not boundaries." The Assembly's greatest mistake became clear: they had created the perfect conditions for their own downfall. By attempting to contain and control multiple species, they had inadvertently created a network of potential allies. By underestimating primitive technology, they had left themselves vulnerable to innovative combinations of old and new techniques. Sarah Chen, now speaking as the representative of the newly formed Alliance of Free Worlds, addressed the gathered representatives of both liberated and former Assembly worlds. "The age of protection is over," she declared. "But we're not here for revenge. We're here to build something new, a genuine coalition of equals, where diversity of experience and approach is seen as a strength, not a weakness to be contained." The Lithoids, Marians, and other former protected species brought their own unique perspectives and capabilities to the Alliance. Humanity's role was not to lead, but to demonstrate that resistance and innovation were possible, that the boundaries established by the Assembly were artificial constructs meant to maintain control. Admiral Santos's fleet, now joined by ships from a dozen liberated worlds, established new patrol routes based on mutual defense rather than containment. The sight of human vessels flying alongside ships crewed by species the Assembly had deemed too primitive for space travel became a powerful symbol of the changing times. Dr. Rodriguez's team began working openly with scientists from other worlds, sharing not just technology but methodologies, teaching them how to approach problems from new angles, how to question established limitations, how to innovate rather than simply adopt. The Assembly's greatest fear, Sarah explained to a gathering of allied leaders, was never our technology. It was our ability to adapt, to think differently, to challenge assumptions. They feared we would teach others to do the same. And they were right to be afraid. As the dust settled on the revolution, the galaxy began to transform. The Assembly's carefully maintained hierarchies crumbled, replaced by a network of cooperative relationships between species who had rediscovered their capacity for growth and innovation. Security Director Marinvex, who had survived the uprising, requested asylum with the new alliance. "I understand now," they told Sarah Chen. "We thought we were protecting the galaxy from chaos. Instead, we were preventing it from evolving. You haven't just freed these species from our control, you've freed them from their own limitations." Humanity had done more than win a revolution. They had sparked a renaissance across the galaxy, proving that the harshest environments don't create weakness, they forge strength. The Deathworlders had stopped playing nice, and in doing so, they had given life to a new era of galactic civilization. New Galactic Order. 1 year after the revolution, the former Assembly Central Chamber had been transformed. Gone were the hierarchical tiers that had once separated advanced species from their protected charges. In their place stood a circular forum where representatives from all worlds met as equals. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the center of the chamber, now serving as the first elected coordinator of the Galactic Alliance. The position was temporary by design, another lesson learned from humanity's history about the dangers of permanent power. A year ago, she addressed the gathered representatives, "We proved that the term Deathworlder was not a limitation, but a testament to resilience. Today, we're proving something even more important, that true strength comes from cooperation, not control." The changes across the galaxy had exceeded even humanity's most optimistic predictions. Former Assembly worlds, forced to adapt to life without their technological superiority, had rediscovered their own capacity for innovation. Protected species, freed from artificial constraints, were achieving breakthroughs that challenged long-held assumptions about technological development. Dr. Rodriguez, working from a new research facility on Mars, had established the Galactic Science Exchange, a network where species shared not just discoveries, but methodologies. The Assembly's mistake, he explained to a group of visiting scientists, was thinking that technology only progresses in one direction. They never considered that sometimes you need to step backward to move forward. The lithoids had combined their crystalline technology with human quantum theories to develop new forms of information storage. The Marians' understanding of fluid dynamics had revolutionized spacecraft design. Even the remnants of the Assembly species, those who had chosen to join the new alliance, were contributing insights from their centuries of experience, now filtered through a lens of cooperation rather than control. Admiral Santos, commanding the alliance's new defense fleet, had implemented what she called the Death World Doctrine, the principle that strength comes not from technological superiority, but from adaptability and cooperation. Our ships now carry mixed crews, she explained during a strategic briefing. Each species brings unique perspectives and capabilities. We're stronger not because we have the best technology, but because we have the most diverse approaches to using it. Security Director Marinvex, who had become one of the Alliance's most valuable advisors, worked tirelessly to help identify and dismantle remaining Assembly control systems. The greatest security, they now believed, comes not from restricting others, but from helping them grow strong enough to stand beside you. The term Deathworlder had evolved too. What had once been a designation of fear and containment was now a point of pride, a recognition that challenges breed innovation, that pressure creates strength, that diversity of experience leads to resilience. In the newly established Academy of Galactic Studies on Earth, students from hundreds of worlds studied not just technology and science, but history and philosophy. They learned about humanity's long climb from stone tools to quantum physics, about the countless times their species had faced extinction and survived, about the power of cooperation and the importance of questioning assumptions. The Assembly's fundamental error, Sarah concluded in her address, wasn't in thinking we were dangerous. It was in thinking that danger could only be contained, never channeled. They saw our adaptability as a threat rather than an opportunity. They never understood that true civilization isn't built on control, it's built on the exchange of ideas, on mutual growth, on the understanding that diversity makes us stronger. The galaxy had entered a new age. The rigid hierarchies of the Assembly had been replaced by a dynamic network of cooperation. The artificial boundaries between advanced and primitive had dissolved, revealing that every species had something valuable to contribute. And humanity? They had found their true role in the galaxy. Not as conquerors or rebels, but as catalysts, proving that the harshest environments don't break you, they forge you. That limitations are meant to be questioned. That the most primitive solution can sometimes be the most elegant. The Deathworlders had stopped playing nice, and in doing so, they had helped create something far greater than the Assembly had ever imagined possible, a galaxy where strength came from cooperation, where innovation arose from diversity, and where every species, regardless of their origin, had the opportunity to reach for the stars. As Sarah looked out at the gathered representatives, she smiled. The revolution was over. The Renaissance had begun. And the galaxy would never be the same again.